Hi, everybody. What's going on?
Thank you all for coming out. I'm Dan Fienberg from The Hollywood Reporter, and of course you know Jerrod Carmichael from the show you just watched.
Hi. Yeah.
So I guess my first question, and then we'll get into the show, is you're currently shooting the Transformers sequel, and I'm curious what the culture shock is going from NBC sitcom to gigantic Michael Bay movie.
Surprisingly similar. It's both kind of guerrilla, both kind of like a lot of. It's funny because acting wise, there's a skill difference, just between sitcom performance and like cool action shot, but it is I've been running a lot. I hope I look cool running. It's a whole art to it. It's a lot of I'm like sore. I'm like legit sore. And so it's a few differences, but mostly in like performance. That's the biggest thing.
Now, a year ago at this time, the show had not premiered yet, and now it's a year later, and you're on to the third season, and you're suddenly now the leading man of the longest-running sitcom on NBC.
Don't clap for that. That's a sign that we have a lot of work to do as a network. There's a lot of work to do, but it's like really really. That's like the equivalent of like seeing a restaurant, have like a sign that says, making sandwiches since 2013, and you're like, all right, well, let's give it a little time before we get a banner printed.
So you're saying I shouldn't be congratulating you on your longevity?
I think we should be, a little cautious before we, really jump into that celebration. Let's ease into it. I do appreciate it. I don't want to sound ungrateful. Thank you very much, and thank you for your applause, but really, it's a...
Does it all feel like a whirlwind? Because you were a summer premiere last year. They kind of, to some degree, burnt you off in 3 weeks, but the show got enough of a buzz in that time for people to start talking about it. Then you got renewed, and then it's been this really fast process for you.
It's all people. It's people. It's fans of the show, and it's all artists and things that really kept us alive, that really watched it and caught it for those 3 weeks in the summer and like kept us going. So it is kind of a whirlwind because it happens really fast. Like you really go from I don't think we've really, this is the longest break we've had. It was essentially the year. Spent most of all of my time dedicated toward it, so it just flies by.
Does the surrealism of saying Norman Lear is my friend ever wear off?
No, I did a real casual. I was on the. I like to casually drop that he texted me. He's like, that's the coolest thing that's ever happened. I was at Upfronts, and he texted me, and then I just left. I left the performance. I was like, yeah, nothing's gonna happen here that's gonna top that. And I just went back and like ate a cheeseburger.
Is he Norm to you?
Not yet. We're not on a Sam Malone level of, Cheers type of. But he's really kind. He's a nice, very smart guy.
So we just watched the porn addiction episode, and I guess the question everyone in here is probably wondering is, how did you choose the names of Jerrod's favorite porn stars?
Research. Lots of research. See, in art, we have to be sure to. Okay.
And do things like that require clearances? Do you have to ask people's permission?
That I'm trying to think particular. I don't think that required a clearance. I think that when it's like factual, you don't necessarily have to get clearance. And these young ladies are performers, and it's all factual information. And so it was nothing to clear, I don't think.
Now, so much of the buzz around the show is about sort of the big topic episodes, the Trump episode, the Cosby episode. Is there something almost more satisfying about a smaller topic, when, like the gentrification episode, or even this one, when you tackle something that's kind of almost granular?
Yeah, well, it's all passion is the most important thing. It has to be passion attached to whatever it is, and you follow that. So it could be something really small and really specific, or more of a relationship issue, or it could be a thing that we see in the news. It's both are equally fun for me. Like as long as I actually have true perspective on it. Otherwise, we're just writing buzz things, but it's really true perspective that goes into it. So it's all. I kind of look at it the same way. It's under the same microscope, just to analyze a thing from each side.
Well, what is the kernel that you start with when you're breaking a story?
Start with the idea that won't leave. Like if it's an idea that just keeps repeating in my head, like if it's an idea that I keep thinking of and I keep going back to it, then it immediately is like, well, we have to talk about this. That's where it starts. And just from there, it just grows, and we challenge the perspective, and we attack it from every angle, just to make sure that everything is heard, and that we have the most unique point of view that we can.
Well, what have been the toughest subjects to crack on a sort of humorous level?
Well, I'm a comic, and it's all gallows. Like it's. I'm trying to think nothing's been really tough, because we. If you come from a thing from truth, I think the humor kind of finds itself. I think in a lot of situations that we've all been in, even like darker situations throughout our lives, there may have been a moment where you laughed, and we find that through truth. I mean, I've laughed at 90% of the funerals I've gone to. There's always a thing. There's always a thing, even in all the sadness, where it's just like, all right, this is happening right now. Like it's that thing that you kind of hold on to. Humor finds its way into the cracks and the nooks and crannies of our lives. So if you just go toward truth, you always find it. You can find it because it's there.
Well, if you talk to any group of comedians or comic writers and you say, is everything on limits for comedy? Can you make a joke about everything? You'll get 15 different answers regarding when you can joke about things, how you can joke about them. What is your point of view on when something is open for business?
Again, and not to just keep saying it, but it really is perspective, because like, you can make a joke about anything. You can, we have structurally the ability to put anything into joke format. But if it doesn't come from a place of truth, the audience recognizes that. They can recognize when something's inauthentic. They can see it from a mile away, when it's just like, oh, he's just saying something for shock value. Same rule with stand-up comedy, where it's like, you can get on stage and just say things, and but you have to. It has to come from a real place. People deserve that. They deserve it coming from a real place. And not only that, they won't watch if it doesn't.
Well, how good is your ear at this point for when you're getting something right, or when it's tone deaf? Or do you still go up on stage and sometimes get a sense, okay, I went the wrong way with that?
Sometimes Sometimes a lot of times you're like, yeah, I know, just by nature of doing it over and over. Sometimes my favorite ones are the ones where I'm like, all right, there is no way this works. When writing it, and then it's just like, I mean, but you gotta do it. You get on stage, it's like, yep, I was right, nothing on that. But all of it's your senses and your sensibility.
Can you give us an example of one of those?
I mean, it would be hard. I won't, because there are so many rushing to my mind right now that we don't have the time to choose. It's like, and also I make it a habit not to repeat failed things to a room full of people.
How much easier has the process come now that you know the voices of all of these characters? Because so much of what you guys do on the show is about the conversations people have on the topics, not even so much the topics themselves. Now that you know how every person talks, is it much easier to get into than it was with the first few episodes?
Yeah, it's always kind of, I mean, it's coming from, a lot of the perspective and a lot of the tone comes from my real life, and also I'm immediately warmed up to everyone in the cast really fast, and I think there's a certain amount of understanding there. So what my favorite part of writing is doing an impression of literally everybody in the cast. No, I won't do it, but because I felt it. I felt just like, do Loretta. I'm not doing Loretta right now. but I do a mean Loretta. I do a solid David Alan Grier, and I just do it's like usually me in my living room pacing around, just doing everyone's voice and trying to get, it's fun. It's really fun to do.
Do they respond, and do you?
Do they do me?
Yeah.
Uh,
Who's got a good Jerrod?
Nobody. Nobody. They all. No, I mean, David can do anything. I don't know if he's done an impression of me or not. I mean, but maybe. I almost don't want to see it because it may hurt my feelings. I don't want anybody to do it. I can't take it. Hollywood's done a number on my self-esteem. I can't. No, I'm joking. Don't do it.
Now, when it comes to the characters, how much fun is it giving the characters points of view that we wouldn't necessarily expect in the audience, cheating our expectations on how they're going to respond to a topic?
Just like any like surprises of it's a great question because I'm trying to think if I do that intentionally. You know, it's kind of a natural. It kind of just kind of flows out. You know, taking the core of who that person is and the perspective kind of finds itself. But it is fun. I mean, a lot of time David's perspective on the show, like Joe's is. I mean, that a lot of that is like a lot of mine that I put into, but I just can't get away with. But I know David can. There's certain things I'm just like I can't get away with just voting for Trump. And, we wrote, but I was like, but David can. And he's going to do it in this next episode. It's fun. It's really fun.
Now, when you get to the end of the episode, I don't usually feel as if there's a quote-unquote winner or loser in the debate, but sometimes you can see the side that the show is taking. How calculatedly do you guys aim to a concluding point in the arguments?
I mean, I like gray areas. I like when a thing is like, and then we stopped arguing. Because that's what real life is. It's not. I haven't had most of the arguments I've been in my life have not reached a conclusion. They just stop because we're tired. It's like because we can't keep yelling at each other. It's usually how an argument ends. So I want to respect everyone's intellect, and so I don't want to just be like, and everything wrapped up. No, a lot of times it doesn't. I can't think of the last time I've changed my mind on anything. So I don't like it in the show where it's just like, so I just try and keep it up because usually I'm like, yeah, I'm still right, but I'm going to stop yelling at you now.
Well, now, would your inclination be for episodes to be 22 minutes of just the family in the living room sort of talking and yelling? And like, does the need to occasionally change sets, does that almost get in the way of your instincts?
Because as long as it's interesting, that's kind of a challenge to us. Like, it keeps the argument engaging because otherwise, like, I mean, you can change sets. I could do the thing where it's like, well, people are bored in this thing. I know if it's an interesting argument, we can stay in that. We've had interesting arguments in one place for 22 minutes, you know, and so people can accept that. So I don't just write, and now we're at a diner, and now we're at a bar, and now it's like, no, we stayed in the living room. I mean, I hope people stay in the living room for 22 minutes. That's what it's there for.
When you're initially pitching the show, does anyone, network studio, try telling you, okay, this is a good idea, but can we make it a little bit more plot-driven, a little bit more narrative-driven, and you have to say, no, that's not what the DNA of the show is?
I think at first it was kind of, you know, they know a certain format, and I want a very specific thing, and so at first there are clashes with just how the stories unfold. But I think we trust each other, and you know, now it's kind of an openness to, and that's how these stories conclude, and that's the perspective, and they kind of accept it now. It's not as much, you know, pushback.
Well, what are the conversations that you still have on a week-to-week level with the network?
I think mostly pleasant, fun conversations about. I don't want to get in trouble. I think that, you know, when we talk, for those within the network that really get the show, it's really productive and it's really helpful and it's really, you know, I have great note sessions after table reads and stuff that, you know, week to week, it's just kind of like, oh, okay, let's see where you go with that or what areas you kind of want to see more of. And it's more of those types of discussions than anything.
Well, do they need to know what is the topic for that episode? Do they need to know that in advance?
Or
want to, I guess.
Yeah, I think we send an. I know this sounds bad. I try and remove creatively. I have to remove myself from a lot of the process and just kind of keep it internal. We do send story outlines to the network. That is a fact. Yes.
Well, Well, both, for example, Trump and Cosby are two people who have been very famously and long-runnedly employed by the network that is currently employing you. Is there any eyebrow raising when you say we've got to go down this road?
Oh yeah, this is a mean eyebrow raise, like The Rock eyebrow raise. When you say we're gonna do a Bill Cosby episode, it's a very like a stern, mostly from a lawyer, eyebrow raise. And there's caution. Obviously, I think it operates as a billion-dollar corporation should to protect itself. And, we operate as creatives and we find a middle ground where we can have an episode that is intelligent and, and that doesn't get us all sued.
Well, how might your entirely unencumbered version of the Cosby episode look?
Not too far from that. The intention with the episode wasn't just like to debate guilt or innocence. It was all to hold up a mirror and to say, all right, well, how do you feel about? So the mirror I think that's part of the reason I think everyone's comfortable with it, because the mirror version of that episode, which is what it was I think you couldn't really argue with that, and we weren't pointing fingers. We were just having a very real well, how do you deal with a situation like this?
And how about the Trump episode? Why was this the right time to do it, and why was this the right way to do it in particular?
Because I felt the perspective that I like, it's all perspective. Perspective is currency, and it's the most important thing when creating. And what we found was a perspective of not dismissing someone's point of view, and that being the core of it. And so Trump being a perfect example of that. The same way the Cosby episode was about the debate between talent versus morals, and this was a conversation about not just being dismissive. Yeah. So that when we found that, it was like, okay, then we have the core, the heart of it.
Well, now this sort of goes into a question from Pinky Washington. What's it like sort of developing the content to your comedy brand, yet being suitable for TV? And to sort of add to that, being suitable for network TV. You made the decision to go broadcast rather than to go someplace where someone would put, say, fewer restrictions on you.
Because creatively, when you really look at the difference, we've gotten in these episodes a lot of jokes and ideas and perspective from I did a special for HBO, and a lot of the perspective is in that. And the difference is I don't say curse words. You know what I mean? It's the perspective is there, and so it's not that hard. It's just it's certain language things, but if the perspective's edgy, good. I think people can handle that, and I think they anticipate that. So it doesn't have to change a lot.
Well, but you work with people who presumably have done, in the past series with Netflix, series with HBO, et cetera.
Yeah.
And they talk about whatever the lack of limitations they might have is. Do you at all feel jealous at any time?
No, I mean, it's exciting to try and get. I think the difference is with Netflix and HBO and things. It's it's not as many things to protect. Broadcast has more entities to protect and more people to service, and with that, it becomes more restrictions, and creatively, it becomes more difficult to get something out just by nature of service and so many things. I think that there's a world where you operate without fear, and you can get genuine, great content on the air. I mean, if you look historically at what broadcast has been, there are shining examples of genuine great content on the air. Like even when creating the show, the things that I would reference and the things that came up were things that were on, network, just broadcast network television. So just knowing that it's possible and knowing that the potential is there, for a mass audience, it's like, why wouldn't we try it? I mean, because people had started doing a watered down version of it, and it didn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. Like, we can actually get content that adults respect on the air.
Well, how much were you sort of spurred on here by nostalgia for the shows you loved as a kid? Because, I mean, you went not only to network, which is sort of somewhat counterintuitive to today's direction, but you also went multicam, which scares the hell out of some people, even though networks love the idea. How much were you steering towards the shows that you loved and being able to do one of your own like that?
A lot, well, because what those shows do, the great sitcom examples to just show you what's possible. It shows you what you can do, not get away with, but the boundaries that you could go to and push. And so very inspired by that, like inspired by the best of. The same way with any, if you become a doctor, you should be inspired by the best doctors, a lawyer, or whatever field you're in. So like just knowing, because they show you what's possible. And Norman Lear shows and shows like Cheers and Murphy Brown and the Cosby Show and all these shows just show you what's possible. And so those things definitely remain in your, when you're creating, you're like, oh, well, we can go to this real place and it'd be good, hopefully.
Now, process-wise, over the first season, second season, and now into the third, what have you learned about kind of delegating responsibility, about balancing your time, about wearing the different hats that you have to wear on this?
I mean, as long as it comes from one vision, it's pretty easy because it's all, you're for instance, if my intention is seeking authenticity with the show, then that reflects every aspect of the show. If I'm seeking authenticity, that comes through in the writer's room. It comes through in the lighting. It comes through in every, the set decorations and all these things. It comes through. So it's easy. I don't think of them as different hats. I think of it as one perspective that you have to maybe repeat a few times, just by nature of so many people, but it's one perspective. So it's really not difficult.
But how about just the time management of it? I mean,
Oh, you just accept that you just don't have time. Once you accept that, once you let it go, once you stop trying to get dinner later, and once you stop, it's like having a newborn. I relate to my friends that have like newborns through the show, because before, you just don't understand. It's like, what do you mean you haven't been to the movies in 3 months? You just don't get it. It's like, because I have a baby, Jerrod, is what people would say. And now I'm like, oh, I get it. You just don't. You just spend every waking hour working.
Well, how much of that is self-inflicted?
I mean, I care. Okay. I care a lot. So you want to. The same way I hope a parent of a newborn is spending every moment of time they have taking care of it. I hope they're not like, I decided to take half a day. I try not, but much so, like a parent, you're like, all right, well, it's a privilege.
How much were you drinking when you were pregnant with the Carmichael show?
Here's the thing. A few shots of tequila, but I hear that's good for that baby, that network baby. It's good for that baby, not an actual baby. You should not do that. But for the network baby, every now and then you need a shot after.
Doctors used to say it was bad, but now they're getting a little bit more lax about it.
Are doctors being lenient on this? We are in an amazing age of science, you guys.
So
fun pregnant women. I'm excited about that.
And after having done this for now 2 seasons into 3, how would you assess your show's leading man as an actor?
That guy. More comfortable in understanding what he can do within the format. A lot of it is just, as a comedian, you learn, if you want to be really great at it, you learn all the rules and then you break them, you know what I mean? Like the same way Miles Davis knew all of the structure of jazz and then created whatever he wanted. And I think I'm learning what the rules are, and I'm learning how to effectively, bend them.
Well, how would we see that if we looked at a second season episode versus a first season?
I think just staying in the pocket longer. It's tone, it's a rhythm thing, and it's still a lot of things that I, personal growth that I anticipate and I get excited about. But it's it's just in the rhythm and in the tone and in the listening. I think it comes across as chemistry. When you watch the show, and I think it gets stronger. And also, I mean, I think the best cast, like really the best cast. Like it just genuinely, thank you. Yeah, they are all genuinely amazing and fun to work with, fun to write for, and fun to watch create. And so I love it. I love every second of it. So they make it easier for the leading man, if you will.
We'll talk in particular about David and Loretta because they both have so many TV shows collectively under their belts. You know, when
Loretta Devine had a marathon on a network of her own shit. Just her own stuff for a day. I think it was on BET if I'm not mistaken. That's how experienced, that's how amazing she is. Like, just like who has a marathon of their own things? She's amazing. She's amazing. And David is, I mean, I genuinely grew up with a love and respect. I mean, he helped teach me what the craft of it is, you know, before I even met him. Just as a kid watching and admiring, you know, his ability. He brings so much heart to everything that he does. He's one of the best working actors. Definitely, probably the best comedic actor. You know, just working. He's amazing. He's genuinely amazing, and I'm just in awe of him.
Well, how do you play opposite those two? Because they are both capable of being so big and so powerful that, you know, all attention on screen can go to one of them when they want it to. How do you sort of accept, okay, that's their scene? How do you accept, okay, now it's time for me to be the star of the scene, et cetera? How do you do that?
Well, they make it easy because they contribute to everyone around you. They bring you to that emotion. They bring you to that place. You know, they never drive off camera when he's not even in the shot. David he's still with you. Loretta is still with you, you know, and you can feel that. And it makes, you know, me and Tiffany and Amber and Rel just really, it really is it's just all trust. It's a giant trust exercise.
And when you have two actors with the wide skill set that those two have, I mean, Loretta's sung already on the show, so at least we got that out of the way.
Yeah. Listen, to have her tell, we would do a musical episode once a season.
But how do you maximize two people who have that many things that they can do, and, you know, keep them always engaged and let them do the things that they can do?
By challenging myself. You know, it's like, well, because you know you're able to go to that place with them, so you have complete freedom when writing for them. You know, like, I mean, you take a show like I was just talking to my friend about, like, House of Cards and how Kevin Spacey breaks the fourth wall, right? And he breaks the fourth wall, and he does it because he has the ability to, you know, because you have a man who does Shakespeare, and he's able to, and he's interesting, and he's such a great actor that you want to see him deliver almost a soliloquy to camera. So writers are able to take those liberties and just write and just flourish and do all these things for Kevin Spacey. Well, I feel the same way when writing for David and Loretta, where it's like, well, I mean, there are certain moments I've written, like, they both have had like 2-page monologues that just through nature of time we've had to condense. I mean, one of the first episode of the show, one of the first of the season, the first season that I wrote, there was literally a 2-page monologue that I wrote for David and Alan Grier about Clark bars. And it was intertwined with, like, the story of my birth, and it was my favorite thing ever. And we just didn't have time. But, like, you can just go for a thing with them because they're able to carry it.
Does no one tell you in advance you're not going to be able to have a 2-minute monologue about Clark bars in a network TV pilot?
But, you know, we can't listen to rules all the time. We just got to go for it, man. Let's just see what happens.
Well, that actually brings up one of my strange favorite things about the show, and it's going to sound a little strange, but maybe someone will agree.
I'm really excited.
Watching the opening credits and seeing how many rooms you're going to walk through in any given week. Because some weeks, you're just going to start in the living room, and you're going to be out the door, and you're going to be gone.
Yeah.
And then other weeks, you start off down the street, you go through 5 different people's houses.
Someone tweeted, they said, when the Carmichael show gives you the short intro, you know they got a lot of shit to say. And it was like, oh, it's the short intro this week. Like, they're trying to. It was like,
and that's so true.
Yeah, it kind of is. It's like, oh yeah, we got to. It's like we got to keep a lot of this. So it's like give them 10 seconds of intro. Get in there. We don't get rid of the intro just because I like it. It was like I like the bounciness of it.
Well, how much flexibility does that honestly give you in runtime? How much can you cut or expand?
I mean, it could be everything. Like, you know, not even jokes, but if there's a moment of perspective that we can get in, and I'm able to squeeze that in a cold open, or we can squeeze that in at the top of an act or something, and we need to get that in there, then we'll it can buy a lot. That little buys you a lot, perspective-wise, and some good jokes sometimes. Yeah.
Well, is that fair play with NBC? NBC just says do whatever
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so. It's like, oh, well, we're doing it for a reason. I think that it's just like, oh, they want they want to put more in, so they kind of let us do it.
Now, the audience that you guys perform for, what have you learned they respond particularly well to, and what have you maybe been surprised that sometimes doesn't get as big a laugh in the room as you might have expected?
It depends. The audience it's funny, we get a wide audience, a very of all ages and backgrounds, and so there are certain things, especially like we do 2 shows, we do 2 tapings, a 4 and a 7 o'clock, and at the 4 o'clock show, I mean, sometimes it's like the complete opposite. There are like moments of just cheers, and then on certain points, and then silence on others, and then at the 7 o'clock, it's literally the inverse. So we get a very wide range of things, like, and you try and trust your creative instincts. I don't like to just remove a thing, and I don't mind a thing not getting the same response. I think shows should get varying levels of laughter and response. So it happens depending on the crowd, and we embrace it. I really like it.
Well, that brings me to a question here from Julie. When line rewrites happen on set, how do you adapt so quickly? I saw one line change during the pilot taping that was a whole paragraph. I would be terrified, but you were unfazed. How?
Oh, wow. Wait, she said a thing changed but she was there?
Yep.
Oh, that's nice of her. She came out. It was very nice. I don't know. You just don't think about it. Like you just don't. And if it makes sense, it's easy. If it makes sense character-wise, then it's easy. So that's also a good test to see, if the line should be in there. But you just don't think about it. You just go and perform it.
Well, what are the conversations you have between the 2 tapings based on what happened in one versus what you're going to do in the second?
Is the story as solid as we want it to be? Are the perspectives as balanced as it needs to be? Are there as many exciting moments as there should? Just very, simple things, but just watching it and being able to step back from it and be able to do it completely, in front of an audience, and then do it again. So it's we look at it in a both macro and micro way.
Have there been any panic?
I mean, we've done between shows. We've rewritten story, and I mean, it's a lot. Again, amazing cast. We've gotten, just by nature of trying to make sure we have the best version of the story. I mean, I've gotten the cast essentially a new script that we tape on Thursdays, and the day of, that morning, essentially a new script. And Loretta's she can't sleep until the script comes out. So and sometimes that's like 4 a.m, and she'll just keep waking up and checking. She's like, she wants to get into the pages. She wants to get into it and start playing with lines, and so sometimes they get essentially a new script. They act a new script, and they do it so well and so amazing. And I mean, it can be a lot, even day of.
Who is the most chill about rewrites? If Loretta presumably is the most stressed out.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even say stressed out. She's just excited. I think it's really a lot of excitement around. But I mean, I would have to ask her. She may say, no, I'm stressed out. She may say that. I don't know. But I think she's mostly just really enthusiastic about it. But who's the most chill? I mean, David just rolls with it. Amber is definitely really chill. Just yeah, all right, whatever. I've changed just literally completely a scene on it the last minute. She's like, all right, yeah, let's just get it. Rel is really, everyone's has a great attitude, a great, approach to it.
Now, you had a couple episodes this season that had serious dramatic spines, the funeral episode and the depression episode in particular. How did you approach those episodes differently?
It was a lot of figuring out, just trying to find the truth. And the funeral episode came together at the last minute. Literally that was one that was right before taping. It was very last minute. A lot of new lines. Marla Gibbs came in. She had half a rehearsal day. She came in the afternoon of the day before we were to shoot. So that's all she had. Came in knowing the lines, nailing it, just being the amazing perfectionist that she is, and just killed it. And that we found the heart of it. We just kept searching, going deeper and deeper, and the relationship with the father got deeper and deeper, and the mom, it got deeper and deeper, and it was, we found it very close to, it was down to the wire. But that was just searching for truth, searching for something that really, woke us up emotionally. It had to just wake me up emotionally, and you're always listening for something that you don't think you've heard, and just trying to find that. We just worked really, really hard at it.
Well, what was the moment that sort of stuck and said, okay, this is what the story actually is?
Probably my favorite moment of that episode, funeral episode, is just David talking to his father and trying to find forgiveness and finally being honest about that relationship. And then Marla coming in and them, talking about such a heavy thing. And then there's a moment in there, is probably my favorite moment of the episode, where David's Joe is apologizing to his mom for for not being there for her while she was being abused by his dad, and he was like, and she says, instead of just immediately forgiving, she says, yeah, you could have done something. And it's just like, and he's like, wait, are you being serious? I was a kid. Like, I was just saying it. But just this moment of her finding a moment to smile even in this darkness was so fun to write. And that's kind of at our best, that place is where we're kind of operating.
On the set, are you watching sort of, or listening to the audience reaction, going, okay, I might need one more laugh in here, I might need something else there?
Yeah, I mean, not really, because it's not, I don't go by like the pay, laugh per minute type thing. The rhythm should be more jazz, and it should be, so I listen, and the laughs came where they were supposed to, and it's almost, if you listen to that episode, like even that particular moment, there's almost a laughter of surprise. As a comic, that's one of my favorite things, when an audience doesn't realize they could laugh at something. And they're like, oh, it's almost a self-realization of like, oh, we're laughing at this? We're going to do this? Like, just like the same emotion that you get on a roller coaster with, like we're doing it, and they just go for it. And I mean, I love that laugh. And that's what we got in that moment.
And with the depression episode, that's a subject that you have to know is going to touch so many people on a very personal level. What is the responsibility you feel to get it, if not right, to get a version of this experience?
Of the responsibility I feel to get a true version of
a true version of what it would be like to have.
Yeah, a lot of it comes from personal stories. A lot of it comes from such a real place. It comes from our lives and people that we know and ourselves. And so a lot of pressure to nail the truthful version of it, because it doesn't contribute to anyone's life if it's inauthentic, and emotionally inauthentic, then it doesn't contribute. We recognize emotional jumps that aren't human, and we recognize emotional turns that aren't realistic. So I try and avoid those and try and have more of a true evolution in character, as opposed to just a turn or a jump.
What percentage of network show creators would you guess are concerned with making sure that those things you just mentioned come through on a sitcom?
I don't know. I hope everyone. Like the hope.
I would guess not everyone.
Not everyone. Perhaps not everyone. Perhaps I'm being very optimistic. But I do hope everyone is doing what's right for their characters. I mean, I know that just for me, I just try and do what's right for these characters, and I try and write the show that I appreciate, and that again, I think really respects the intelligence of the viewer. So it's really important to me, and I hope that it's important to everyone.
And we're in this very good moment of almost issue-oriented sitcoms these days on network and cable. You got you guys, you have Blackish, you have Survivor's Remorse. I'm curious, do you have any awareness of when you guys do a Trump episode and someone else does a Trump episode, or when you guys do a Cosby episode and Blackish does their Cosby episode a month later or something? Do you sort of pay attention to what other conversations people are having?
Not really. I mean, it comes from such a real place, when creating it, that we just make it. We stay to ourselves, and we just make it, and we try and make the best product we possibly can, and we put it out, and and So I'm not really, you know, I don't really look into anybody else, as I hope that they're doing. You know, I hope that everyone is doing that, just kind of creating, you know, the best possible version of what they do, and that's what we do.
A couple other questions from the crowd. Lucky asks very specifically, how did you get this show sold?
How do we get it sold?
Yes.
Lucky?
Yes.
Lucky's
Lucky
just
asks.
like, I want answers. I want names. Who's your agent? What dinners? What? I mean, Lucky. We don't have time. I mean, there's a lot. There's so many factors. It's so many factors. You know, it's so many things, and it's, you know, it's a constant. It's a breathing thing. You know, making sure. You know, I think the important thing is, you know, when selling anything, is making sure that who you articulate your ideas to can then articulate those ideas to someone else. That's important. It's like, you know, as a comic, you know, a really, really great joke is one that people can then go to their jobs and repeat, you know, and with any pitch is like, well, what can they then pass along to other executives or other producers or whoever you're partnering with on that particular project? What, you know, what is a repeatable version of it? I hope that helps, Lucky. I don't know.
But how did you get it sold? No.
Oh, that's but how? Also, my lawyer is PJ Shapiro. Just get really specific, really technical. But it is that. It's a whole team. It takes a village. I'm just going to compare this to parenting for the entire.
No reason why not. Now, when you were coming up, did you feel like, and this is from Justin, did you feel like you got a lot of resistance breaking into Hollywood? And who did you feel like were your biggest champions coming up?
That's a good question. A lot of resistance. I don't really think about like the resistance or the pushback. You know, just try and have a perspective and hold on tight to it and just keep running. But the champions are those around you. It's a lot of early adopters. You know, it's a lot of, you know, the people within your circle, your peers, your competitors. You know, those people can champion you. And you know, I had you know, a lot of great people that really just kind of believed and saw potential and mostly, again, it's just you running like just full steam ahead and just searching for those people as well. So I mean, it depends. You know, there are club owners that give you a shot if you're a comic, and there are producers that are interested. You know, the producer I'm working with now, Ravi Nanda, and I mean, it was very early on. I met him very, very early on, and he just, you know, we worked really, really, you know, hard on this particular show. We just worked really, really hard together, and he just trusted the vision, and he contributes so much. You know, it's people that just get you early. You know, it's just people that you really vibe with and people that you really connect with early.
Now, you talked about the importance of working with experienced actors like David and Loretta. How about experienced writers on your staff? Like, what is someone like a Mike Scully, who has done The Simpsons and dozens and dozens and dozens of, you know, very famous sitcoms? What does working with someone like that teach you?
I mean, you know what's amazing about Mike Scully is that he's like a true creator, always open. He's open. You know, Mike Scully is so, first of all, one of the funniest people I've ever. I mean, he's genuinely one of the funniest people I've ever met, and he's so excited to try new things. I think that's why he's been so important to the business for so long, because it's always, and I mean, Mike was developing with the Lucas brothers, you know, so before they had any, you know, national attention, you know, just a guy that really, he's always excited about the next thing and a new thing and something fresh, and he brings fresh ideas, and I mean, his openness is, you know, beautiful. It's so beautiful. And I mean, he's like my favorite person, you know. I love that guy.
Well, talking about sort of the jazz analogy you've been doing, how important is having someone who's been through the sitcom wars? You know, how important is that to making sure that you know the notes on the page and then allowing you to go and play with them?
Yeah, to have some freedom. And that's really the, you know, the sooner you get the story, the more everyone's able to kind of play a little bit, and it is that, like, again, knowing all the rules so you know what to break and what to bend. So it is important to know it and to connect with it. It's all connection. So you want to really connect with the material so that you can just go off on a sax solo.
Now, you guys avoided so many sitcom conventions in the first and second seasons, but then the finale did have an engagement, which felt more sort of plotty than what you guys normally do. What was kind of the mental calculus of throwing that bone to the audience or to the network?
It felt like the natural next step in the evolution of that relationship, that it should be there. And I liked it as a juxtaposition to having the biggest argument that we've had, a thing that tore us apart, combined with the almost, just unity, almost cliche unity. Those things opposite of each other just seemed like a fun match and a fun thing to play with. So it really was, it wasn't even to feed into any type of conventional thing, as much as it was like, oh, that seemed like a fun, that seems like a fun thing to partner. I mean, if that weren't the finale, the season finale, I think we would have done the same thing if the third episode, if we were doing that episode then.
And just sort of as a last question, when you were choosing what you were going to do during the hiatus, were you actively thinking, what is the furthest I can do from
transform? That was fine. Every morning I woke up. No, I'm writing a couple other things, always thinking about the show as well, and stand-up really is the main focus, and then met with Michael and decided to go be in Transformers. It's really fun. It's the most, that's a whole nother conversation. This is fun.
Is there any part of this experience that you can take with you on to Carmichael?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, listen, Michael Bay, I can't think of a more specific vision. You know what I mean? Like a more specific, the man is his own genre. You know what I mean? Like, he's his own genre. And, what I like about Michael is like say what you will about anything and whatever your feelings on it. I mean, within the film industry, he creates, these things that become tent poles, and he's like the Colonel Jessup of the film industry. A lot of things, rise and sleep under the umbrella of protection. Anyway,
Colonel Jessup, he was the bad guy.
Hey, man. Also the most interesting. Yeah.
True that.
It's a lot. I genuinely do. It's great to watch Michael work, and it's a fun experience.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming out this
afternoon.
Thank you to Jerrod Carmichael.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.